Hi, welcome back to my YouTube channel. I want to start off by saying thank you for all the support. Again, I know I posted a little YouTube short, but more than the likes and more than the subscribers, like you guys are already entertained. That's kind of amazing. I really appreciate the comments. I didn't quite get it at first, with YouTubers and feeling so much support, but when you just start posting videos and people are encouraging you, and saying they're gonna stay and saying that when they're encouraging, that's incredible. And I didn't realize how incredible feeling that was gonna be. So thank you. And thank you for sharing. I know a couple of you shared and asked me some questions, and I just wanted to say thank you for that as well. I want to encourage you to continue to comment. If you have critiques, let me know. Again, I don't have a camera, so please don't dog on me there. And I also don't have a computer to edit yet, but other than that, I'm open to some critiques if you guys have it. I am so grateful for the support. I can't express how far it's already gone for me. And yeah, so thank you, and thank you for watching. I really appreciate you also viewing these videos. You watching is gonna be a big help to me. So again, I do have a little notepad out in the corner where you can't see it. Sorry for scripting. With just a few notes and reminders of what I want to talk about in this video. So I'm naming my journal, my video journals, which is what I'm kind of calling this. I'm hoping to migrate into vlogging, but this one will be named Adventure in the Wind. When I was really young, really young, when I had just moved up to Alaska, so when I was like 5 years old, especially around 5 or 6, I started telling like my mom, I want to go on an adventure. I want to go on an adventures, and I think visually, kind of what I was imagining at the time was these, worlds. It was world building. It was like I wanted those fantasy lands, I wanted those supernatural powers, things that like as a little kid I didn't kind of deem unrealistic. And we would go on different trips and play dates, and my mom would be like, "See, that's an adventure, isn't it?" And I'd be like, "No," but I would agree. I would be like, "Yeah, and thank you," because why wouldn't I be grateful to go on trips and play dates? But there was always something fundamentally missing about it. So, kind of diverting off of that for a moment, because that is an important part, but I don't know how to divert smoothly into this. I also want to mention, kind of separate point, prayer. Prayer for me growing up was like an instinct, and we're going to be focusing on lamenting prayer. A prayer of lament. So if you don't know, when you lament in prayer, it is this, the big question is why? Why God me? Why now? Why do I have to go through this? Why do you let me suffer like this? That's one of the biggest parts of lamenting is the why. It is a stressing, it's a complaining, a lot of it's complaining. But when I was really young, especially like 6 to 8 years old, I remember doing this a lot. I would call out to the universe. Nobody taught me how to pray growing up, so this is why I'm like, this is kind of like an instinct some part of me just knew to. So I would kind of call out to the universe, if something's out there, if something's bigger than me, if there's something that can hear me, if there's something grander than myself that can perceive me, and I didn't use the word perceive at 6 years old, no. But if there's something out there, why do you let me go through this? And I know now that I was directly talking to God at that point, that I was talking to God the Father, even. I couldn't quite put a name on it. I didn't quite believe so surely that that's who it was. But I would call out to him, and I already expressed in one of my earlier videos that when I was 14, God irrevocably set my heart on hearing his voice, and made me concentrate on him and he placed it on my heart through the spiritual warfare one of my best friends was having at the time. So prayer for me is like an instinct. Now, I don't know if it's like this for all people. One thing that I read recently, The Language Instinct by Steven Pinker, a really good friend of mine, recommended it to me, And he expressed that there was this understanding that you gain between people. And this book goes into, language development in children and societies. It gets into Creoles and language and sign language. And one thing that, the author, if you can read the author, he's really expressing this, he's really stressing that, language should be looked at as an instinct, like we are learning to speak from a very, very young age, that children develop language without being prompted, and not only develop, but improve, in a grammatical sense, and in Creoles and in mixing pots. So he keeps putting on this stress throughout, especially the beginning of the book, that language is an instinct, language is this instinct, just like breathing, just like surviving. It's an instinct. And for me, I had found recently, especially off of that book, that prayer was also an instinct. And I don't know if it's for everybody, but to me, it's something that came naturally. It was something very obvious. Like something I was just supposed to do. I don't know, something in me just knew to do it. Like it was an automatic function almost. It's like breathing. You know how like you automatically breathe, but then you can also, like, if you're consciously thinking about it, you can like alter your breathing or hold your breath or take deep breaths. Yeah, so point there. So the adventure that I sought and the prayer is an instinct. Now, these kind of come together. So this is hard to explain. I found, I guess what I'm trying to say is that adventure that I was seeking, I found in God. And I only could find it in God through a journey of growing with Him, learning Him, relearning Him, because how sad is it to become someone we don't know anymore? But relearning Him and having a relationship with Him, I have found that that feeling that I was seeking that entire time, that sensation, I think it is the Holy Spirit. So, encounters I've had with the Holy Spirit. I'm going to start off with a big one. It's not a huge, long story, but it is a very specific encounter. So, there was this brick wall outside of my childhood apartment in my hometown, where I would sit against it, when sometimes I would draw, sometimes I would just hang out over there. Today I was specifically sharpening an arrow. I really like archery, and when I was young, I really was obsessed with trying to make a bow. Never really made one successfully, but I do have a feeling I will make a bow with a stave in the future. But I remember just sitting against the wall, whittling the stick, and I hear a single twig snap behind me, and I almost think it didn't happen. I almost think that I heard something like in my head, like, I'm just making that up. And then a thought comes by. Your little brother's trying to scare you. He had a way of sneaking up on me that, I wouldn't have noticed him except for that twig snap. So I was like, okay, now I have to turn around. And when I turn around, there is, like, on the brick wall, face to face, 5 feet away from me, giant mama moose. And she has 2 calves, and naturally I would be scared, but I remember looking at her and she had very human eyes. I know as a kid who, lived life in solitude quite a bit and got left alone for very long periods of time, maybe I just, but she looked like she had more love in her eyes than my own mom. So I was like, oh, hi, Mama Moose, right? No, but I was sitting there, like kind of frozen, locked in the gaze with this mom, with this moose, right? And I remember just a flurry. It started lower in my torso and it like branched out through my chest, just this flurry, like the wind itself possessed me. And I remember all of a sudden running home, and I didn't feel like I was doing this. This was like, the wind possessed me to run. Weird thing to say, but I was halfway up the staircase in my apartment building, and I was like giggling, like I was so giddy. I was just laughing and giggling and happy and smiling and like just extremely giddy and joyous. And I went to my room. I don't remember encountering anybody like in the house, but when I was in my room, I was just like sitting and I was like laying down, just couldn't keep a smile up. Kind of like this right now. I'm kind of seeing myself. I'm smiling a lot. I was smiling and giggling like a mouth. It was great. But it was incredible. That was one of my first like encounters with the Holy Spirit that was like vivid, that was, the Spirit inside of me. Um, had another one, I think. Oh, oh yeah, we'll get to that though. We'll get to that. A few little experiences that I will have and I consistently have though. The Spirit when the Lord speaks. So as I learned the voice of God, one thing I've noticed is that I'll also feel the Spirit flare up within me when I hear His voice. So when He's speaking to me, I will, and it's different extents. Sometimes it will be a flaring up, like just like that, like really strong, and sometimes it would be very, very small, like spidey senses, like tinglies, but it'd be a lot more shallow. But a lot of times it was stronger, and I have these, sometimes it can be almost every day, sometimes it's multiple times a day. It's whenever the Spirit's communicating with me. The Spirit of praise, another thing that comes when it speaks to me, and through other people too, I'll have, it'll be some form of praise and I'll feel the Spirit. So one time there's this mentor, this man became like a mentor to me during my time being homeless, and I remember having a particularly hard night where I was very emotional, and I had just told God like a few nights prior, like, I don't want to see you, I don't want to come into your throne room until you can be proud of me, until you're proud of me. Like, I don't want to just please you when I step before you. I want you to be proud. And I remember I was just going through a separation and I was having a really hard time. I was very emotional, and this man who became a mentor like me was speaking to me. He was like, look, Airianna, you've come a long way as you've been here with us. You were very obviously on guard when you got here, and now you're a lot looser, you're a lot more expressive, you're a lot more social. And, when you got here, I thought you were going to be here for a year, and he ended up telling me that he was proud of me. And it wasn't just him, like the Spirit flared up within me, and I immediately went back and remembered what I told God, and it was incredible to know that this role model to me was proud of me, and God was too. So it was incredible though. The Spirit will also hush me sometimes. I don't know if anybody else gets that, but I had a large problem with speaking prematurely, and I get a little confused, and I know confusion's not of the Lord, but He's not an author of confusion, but sometimes I would get it. I think it's more mixed with my flesh than necessarily, any satanic or demonic powers. A lot of times it's my flesh, and what I want. So when my understanding clashes with his, in preaching something that he told me or giving someone a piece of valuable information about me, sometimes he'll like hush me in the moment. And I've been tongue-tied by spirits before. They have literally caused me not to be able to speak right, and I mean that like grammatically, and added speech impediments, and tripping over your words and stuttering, not being able to think of any of the right words. But when it's the Spirit of God, he would hold my tongue for a moment, and he'd do it for a few times. Like if I try to say something a few times, he'd like get me to pause, right? And I'd noticed that in conversation, whatever I was about to say, there would be no way to say it with it sounding natural. It would always sound like it completely came out of left field, no matter how I try to introduce it. So he became, what is that, like, what are they, pathologists, the speech doctors? I don't know. But he became like my speech therapist. So he helped me learn how to speak, and he also helped me learn how to pronounce, but he also helped me learn when to shut the fuck up. Excuse me, but he taught me when to shush. So yeah, that was another one. So one of the last like main encounters that I wanted to go over, I do have a testimony for the end of this video, but last encounter that I wanted to go over was this haunting feeling I would get. Um, so growing up, I remembered every year, especially on New Year's. Now, it could happen several times throughout the holiday season, like Thanksgiving, Christmas, when there's a celebration happening. But especially New Year's, and I'm not exactly sure why New Year's, but every year on New Year's, my mom, she would hand me like a glass of champagne or wine. It was usually champagne. Um, and I just remember my vision would tunnel vision around this glass of wine and around her hand and around the offering, because that's what it became every time. It was a moment of offering. It was a temptation and a test. And I said no every time, of course, but like in a dream, when you have this awareness of something, and it's not like said or stated in the dream, you just know about some reality that's happening in that dream. I had this general awareness, it didn't have to be spoken, not even mentally, that I was being set up. And not only that I was being set up, but this was going to be a cause for accusation. So, a clause for accusation. I was scapegoated a lot growing up. I've already gone over this, and how, it didn't matter if like something was justifiable, if something was just a straight up lie, a false accusation, or people pinning their bad feelings and their failures or whatever on me. But I knew that this, whether it was going to be one time, like if I was going to be blamed on New Year's, because I don't know if it was intentional by my mom or by the spirits. I don't know if she was conscious that she was setting me up, because we battle spirits and principalities, not flesh, not our blood and flesh. So I don't know if she was conscious. Sometimes people will be conscious of their own little schemes, and sometimes it will build into that. And that's when they start saying things like, oh, you made me do this. Oh, you caused this. Acting like it's almost like a self-fulfilling prophecy, but they're the ones emotionally reacting. So I remember my mom would do this, and I knew that I was being set up. Now, I don't know if I was being set up to be an addict or blamed for a very specific event. I think it was more, it was just, trial every time. It was just a test every time, and I declined it every time. I always had a horrible feeling about it. Like I said, tunnel vision around the offering. It felt like an offering. I had that awareness, and, I already knew, that my mom would blame me in certain things. This just fell over, but I have also the testimony that I needed to share. So, crossroads. When I talk about crossroads, I've been having this moment that I'll have in life, and it'll be a season. It can be weeks, and it can be, like a month and a half. But it's just this coming to with God that I become very accepting of His will. It's usually after, it's a neutral zone. A lot of times after I get broken up with, or I go through a breakup, or I break up with somebody, I don't have anybody to take care of but myself. And I don't know what direction I'm going in life. I'll get this moment, and I call it a crossroads, because I just come to peace with whatever God's will may be. If He wants me to walk back to something, I can walk back, and I'll be at peace with that. If He wants me to completely move on from everything and everyone I knew and loved and desired, I would make peace with that. One time, this was, I think, last August. So, oh my gosh, it's almost a year ago. Last August, I was staying with this person. This woman was like a mother figure to me. And I stayed with her about a month. Now, as I was staying with her, again, this woman was like a mother figure to me growing up. This woman had shown me, not to be so insecure, in the way that I dress. Like, my mom would be putting me in sweaters in the summer, and I would be overheating and in pain and headaches over it, kind of thing. So she was the woman who got me to dress properly. She was the woman who sparked confidence in me, You know, she's the reason that I dance to this day. She's part of the reason that I sing. I was staying with her, and I had noticed, you know, I was getting to this crossroads area, but I had noticed that, you know, she started accusing me of little things that I wasn't doing. So, you know, leaving lights on, doors open that weren't supposed to be open, you know, leaving messes around that I didn't make. And I started realizing, like, I don't think that I actually left that light on. I think I did close that door. I think I did wash those clothes. Like, I was like, I know I did these things, but she's accusing me otherwise. Now, she was an alcoholic, and she was very forgetful, and she would also blame her boyfriend, who also lived with her, of these same things. And it started small, and I started, like, going around the house, you know, 3 or 4 times, just checking everything, and I would come back, and she would still blame me, you know, for like, that's when I knew, was, like, when I had checked around the house, and I specifically remember checking something twice, 3 times, 4 times, and she would still blame me of, you know, not completing a chore or leaving something around the house. And I realized, you know, she is trying to parent me still. She has not come to the conclusion in her heart that I have matured in any way, you know, that I have grown in any way, that I need these reminders, that there's something that she needs to fix. And I know she was looking for something to fix in that time. And then it happened. I was in the kitchen one day, and she came home, and she accused me of stealing her medications. Now, you don't know this, but everyone in my life at that point knew that I absolutely hated medications. I had fought for like 10 years to try to get off. I usually tell people a decade, same difference, but I had fought to get off of medications. You know, my mom put me on medications, and she drugged me the fuck up with them. And I had to fight. I had to fight with my doctors about it, you know. And it was a very exhausting battle, but I was very stunned. You know, because of this, I was like, how in the world, of all the people on God's green earth, do you think I would not only take medications, but steal them? You get what I'm saying? So she accused me of that, and she was dead set that I did it. She was dead set that they were stolen and that it was me. And I had a couple friends who would come over. I was like, I did not take your meds. And I don't think so-and-so as well as so-and-so took them either. And she's like, I know they didn't take Airianna. And she looked at me, and she spoke and looked at me with so much hostility. But you know, in the meds she accused me of taking were these muscle relaxants. Mind you, she takes them for her back, and her boyfriend also has back problems and pain. Now, I did not bring up her boyfriend. She several times said, and I know it's not him, and I knew that too. What I think happened, you know, because she claimed she found it in the room. That's another good detail that you should know. She did say that she claimed she found it in the room that I was staying in. What I think happened, because from my side of the story, I'm going to tell you, I did not take them. What I think happened is she got blackout drunk, and she misplaced them, or maybe she took them. I don't know. Or maybe she lost them. I don't know, but I think she forgot about them. And I later on learned that she also mixes her pill bottles, which was also kind of like, well, that might be part of it too. But I was at this crossroads, you know, I was ready to move in whatever direction, you know, and I was looking at this woman who was accusing me of something, you know, she sounded like my mom. And I was like, I wouldn't do that to you. Not only that, but I wouldn't do that. I don't even like pills. Like, how does this measure up at all? Like, and I couldn't really, you know, get through to her that, you know, hey, maybe you're just a blackout drunk who forgot about them, you know, because I promise you I didn't take them. I wouldn't do that to you, and I wouldn't do that. Like, how does that make any sense? But I can see why she thought it, and I can see why she stuck to it. She's a very stubborn woman. I'm a very stubborn woman too. So when I was looking at her, I decided in that moment, I'm not going to live with this. I'm not going to be accused every which way I go. I'm not going to live with a person who's going to just keep accusing me of things, and they're going to make bigger and bigger lies about it because they can't remember, because they're so used to being able to blaming other people. And it was really sad because I really looked up to this woman before then, and she has done a lot for me. So, you know, when she didn't budge, when she didn't listen to me, when she was just trying to force a confession out of me, she had already set her heart that I was to blame. I packed my stuff up and I left. And I learned that that's what I was going to do. I was not going to sit in the accusations any longer. I was going to acknowledge that I was an adult, that I could take care of myself, and that God has me. God has plans for me, and he's not going to bless me in a place where someone's going to be doing that, who's going to be taking out their emotions on me, who is going to use, again, as a scapegoat. She might not have known. Like, I do think she really did believe that I took them, but it's sad because I don't think she has the capacity to know the truth. So, yeah, that was another time that the Lord's joy and peace. God bless the Lord himself, because he has been my emotional regulation so much. And he's really helped me keep my tongue and hold my breath, hold my words, be the bigger person a lot of times. I've met a lot of middle-aged toddlers recently, and I shouldn't, that's pretty rude. You know, I can't edit that out because I don't have a computer, but there's a lot of people who act very childish. They have very, sorry, excuse me. They have very childish mentalities, and they're really not good at their emotional regulation. And a lot of them, like my own mother and this motherly figure, a lot of them, including these two, it's like they're trying to live out their teenage years again. I don't know how to say that in any kind of way. They're just like people are trying to revisit drugs, you know, go out and party, you know, and these are middle-aged women and people, you know, with kids and responsibilities, and it's like, yeah, I'm not even doing that. I'm still trying to, you know, take care of myself and heal from the trauma you gave me. But I do wish the best for them. I do believe they're completely capable of change. Both these women are very, very stubborn, and I would be a liar to say I wasn't as well. But if I can change, so can they. And I do believe once they stop denying, you know, once they're not in denial about, you know, their own problems anymore, and that they're not perfect, that they don't have life figured out, you know. And they would tell me otherwise, like they don't believe, but they do, and they act like they do, and they make it clear. I think they have goodness for their lives. I do think God has an identity for them, and this goes for every person. If there's someone in my past and you're listening to this right now, you are completely capable of change. And it's not that I think, you know, that you're horrible, you know, no, a lot of you had problems from, you know, trauma, generational trauma from your parents, and what your parents got from their parents. A lot of it has to do with that. A lot of it has to do with the pain that you don't think that you can cope with. You can. You can, and you can change. And when I say change, listen, you have so much better in store for your life. God has so much better for you. And it's not going to be in these relationships, you know, where you're chasing lust so that you can be loved or feel validated. It's not in that. And it's gonna be painful. It's always gonna be, it's going to get harder before it gets better. It's going to be. And if you're deep in addictions, it's going to be really freaking hard. It was really freaking hard for me. And I still will tell you with confidence, there is more for you. So, but yeah, I thank you for watching. I don't mean to be making 30-minute videos, but if you found anything entertaining, or, you know, if you found any wisdom in this, I would be so happy. Again, please, in the comments, give me your advice, give me your critique, keep giving me support. I love that. Thank you so much for the support, and thank you for sharing and asking questions in the comments. It means the world to me. I hope you have a good rest of your day. It is, I don't have a watch, but I like pretending like I do. Um, Tuesday? It's Tuesday. Happy Tuesday. Have a good rest of your week and have a good rest of your July. It's enjoy your summer while it lasts, you know? It's I don't know if you live in the northern hemisphere, but it's summer, baby. So enjoy it. Enjoy the sun while it lasts. Have a good rest of your day. Thank you so much again, and thank you for tuning in. I'll see you next time. Bye.